Now, 2 months ago, I received a phone call from Lance Freed and asking me if I'd be honored to be able to be the MC of this event. I said, hands down, absolutely, Lance, absolutely. And I thought, all the work that's have to go into this, monumental task, because Lance lives in Los Angeles. And we introduced Lance to a couple of people, of course, Jim Davison and Chris Mitchell, Ron Watt, and they put this thing together, helping with Lance. And the event you see today, Lance worked diligently, phone calls, coming back and forth, everything else to do this because he wanted to do this for his father, because it meant so much. Getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986 was a wonderful, wonderful gesture. But the true fulfillment was to be able to have his father, as they say, the father of rock and roll, come home to where it all began. And what a beautiful place, the Lakeview Cemetery. So I'd like to be able to bring on the man responsible for putting this whole thing together and working diligently to honor his father, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, Lance Freed.
I was sitting in the back so that I could hear a lot of applause for a long time. Thank you, Norm. Siggy. It's raining out there. Is that lightning?
That's all right.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and speak. It's only rain. And we'll all get dry. I just want to say welcome, Cleveland. Thanks so much for coming out. All the folks that came out today to bid farewell and to bid hello. So happy that you could be here to celebrate his homecoming. You know, when my father was alive, he was on the road a lot. He toured quite a bit. But after his passing in 1965, he continued to be on the road. His cremated remains traveled from California to New York and then to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and for 51 years he moved around. So, Dad, what I want to say to you is welcome home. We're here to celebrate your final performance. You don't need to travel anymore or any further. You're home. There are a lot of reasons his tour should end in Cleveland, and it was right here. I don't need to repeat what everybody else has said, that the Moondog Rock and Roll Party was born, and the Moondog Coronation Ball, well, only my father could have thought of something like crowning himself King of the Moondoggers. I mean, let's throw a show, but let's also crown me king. That was him. It was his way of having fun and connecting with folks. And the birth of rock certainly belongs here in Cleveland. And he always called this city his home. Even after he moved to New York, his heart remained here. And I can tell you that he used to fly on Sunday afternoons to Cleveland to watch a not-so-good Cleveland Indians team get shattered and battered by the New York Yankees, who he hated secretly. But here's the remarkable thing, and this is where the people of Cleveland really accepted the unacceptable, considering the fact that it was 1951, a man playing blues and rhythm records by artists of color. My folks here embraced him in the records he played. And Cleveland was at the epicenter of a new kind of music that swept the nation and ultimately the world. So we can all be proud of that, and particularly the people in Cleveland, because you guys embraced it. Some folks say that he was treated badly at the end and he didn't deserve to be singled out for promoting the music he loved. Today's celebration is all about the positives. Happily, that's what folks remember today, and that's why we're here. I always remember him as a man of great courage and conviction, and by accident of birth, he was my father. But to millions of people around the planet and around the world, he was their father too, the father of rock and roll. I want to take a quick moment to share a couple of personal stories with you. One lucid memory that I have was on Sunday afternoons at the house in Connecticut. He would bring home all the 45s that he had received during the week, and Alana, my sister, and I would open those 45s and stack them up. And my dad would come into the room, and sometimes there were as many as 80 singles, and he put each one of them on the record player and listened to 6, 8, 12 bars of each one, sometimes more. Most of them he'd fling across the room like a frisbee. Every once in a while, one went into the maybe pile, and I remember one particular record by a Connecticut group called the Five Satins. After he finished playing that record, he said, "This one's going on the radio tomorrow." And it was called In the Still of the Night. He had a terrific ear for music. Maybe it was because he had double mastoiditis and had been drafted into the Army and ended up in the ski patrol by accident, which is true. He didn't know how to ski. He was from Salem. You don't ski in Salem. Another memory that stands out quickly is at one of his shows at the New York Paramount Theater. His dressing room was 4 stories up, and you could look out the window, and down below there were a couple of hundred teenagers, and they were all yelling, "Get your dad, get your dad." So I said, "Hey, everybody wants you to come to the window." So he came over to the window and he waved, and it wasn't like he was waved like he was a star. It was like he was, they wanted him to come down and be part of them. He was their biggest fan. They were his biggest fans. He wasn't a star. He just was like everybody else. He just never grew up. He was a teenager, just like all the kids down there. And I think that was part of the magic. And finally, I want to mention that I used to have an opportunity to watch him broadcast occasionally on Friday nights on WINS in New York. And I think I was 8 years old, so for me to sit through almost 4 hours of a show without fidgeting and wanting to leave was something, because as kids, it's hard to keep our attention. But he was so good at what he did. He was almost like he was reaching through this microphone and touching people personally. And Eisenhower was going on the air. President Eisenhower, he was going to address the nation. So there was a 1-hour reprise. In other words, Eisenhower was going to broadcast, so we all ran across the street to grab something to eat at a restaurant. And we arrived knowing that we had to order rather quickly, which we did. And about the time the food arrived, this guy comes over and he stands next to my father and he says, "Hi, Alan." And my dad looked up at him and he looked back down at his plate and he said, "I'll never play your records." And I thought, God, how rude, And later on, I was told that this guy was Pat Boone. I think that it's true. He wouldn't play Pat Boone's version of Tutti Frutti, which is a piece of crap. He played Little Richard. He only played the original recordings in part because he was an original as well. And just before his untimely death in 1965, he told me that we had a chat in the living room that he regretted nothing in his life or the way he lived it. Maybe one thing, he wished he had more time. That he could get behind a microphone once again and carry on. That was his dream, to leave that desert and get back to New York or a major market and get behind a microphone. But it wasn't to be. But look, the fact that we're all here today is living proof that he and the music he introduced is still here, that he did carry on. He told me he was so lucky to be present at the birth of rock, and to be a midwife, and he even got to give the baby its name. So how much he loved the music and the artists and his fans, and that he was going to miss them. I miss him. And it's true, there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think something about him. But I'm proud we're here bringing him home. He was done way too soon, but he's here with us today and for all time. So welcome home, Dad. Welcome home. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you.